Sir, you can't be out
I'm
here
not a
soliciting
soliciting
commuters.
officer. I'm handing out campaign literature. Perfectly legal at bus stops.
People have been saying you're
I'm
making them
standing on public
uncomfortable.
sidewalk, speaking when approached. Here's my ID, my permit from the Board of
All on
Elections.
live, y'all. Man's just giving out flyers.
Fine, just keep the walkway clear.
They shoved a black man against a cold glass bus shelter like he was nothing. They told him he had no right to hand out papers on his own street. They called him aggressive, even though he never raised his voice. But what Officer Madeline Kruger didn't know, what the whole street didn't know, was that the quiet man in the long black coat wasn't just another commuter. He was the man who wrote the city laws she claimed he was breaking. And when the truth hit, Cleveland froze. Before we dive deeper, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Now let's get back to the story. Put the flyers down. No, I said put them down. The voice cut through the cold morning air like a snapped cable. Elias Ford stood at the corner of Franklin and Vine, autumn leaves swirling around his polished shoes. He wore a long black coat, the kind that made him look tall, steady, and ready for winter. He held campaign flyers in one hand, blue, white, and orange sheets with his face printed on them. In the other hand, he kept the rest tucked neatly like he had practiced this 1,000 times. But there was nothing neat about this moment. Officer Madeline Kruger stepped toward him, boots heavy, breath sharp, face flushed with irritation. She was shorter than him, pale-skinned, hair pulled so tight it looked painful. Her badge glinted in the morning sun. She already had her hand hovering near her holster, even though Elias wasn't moving. A phone camera pointed from the side, a young black man, maybe 19, holding it like he was gripping the truth itself. Tyrone Pierce. Skinny, bright-eyed, college hoodie, determined. He kept recording. And Kruger noticed. "Put that phone down," she snapped at him. Tyrone didn't move. "Ma'am," Elias said calmly, "they're just flyers. I'm allowed to." "No, you are not," she cut him off, stepping closer, her voice rising. "You're soliciting. And you're intimidating commuters." Elias blinked slowly like he needed to make sure he heard right. "There's no one even waiting at the bus shelter," he said softly. Kruger stepped even closer until she was inches from him. "And yet here you are, loitering." Tyrone whispered, almost to himself. "Here we go." Elias Ford never liked trouble. He never liked shouting. He never liked scenes. He was a quiet man, a man who read thick books and drank cheap coffee and pressed his clothes the night before big days. He grew up in Glenville in a house where the water pipes rattled and the radiators hissed like angry cats. He walked to school through snow so deep it swallowed boots. He worked hard, stayed humble, never forgot who he was. Now at 41, he carried himself like someone who had seen too much to waste energy proving anything. He had kind eyes but a firm voice, broad shoulders, but a gentle way of standing so people felt safe around him. He didn't dress like someone rich. He didn't speak like someone famous. He didn't look like someone powerful. But he was all of those things, quietly. He wrote laws for the city. He advised mayors. He earned medals in places overseas where the ground still shook at night from old wars. But none of that mattered to Officer Kruger. All she saw was a black man on a sidewalk, speaking calmly when she expected fear. "Step away from the shelter," Kruger ordered. Elias didn't move. "Ma'am," he said, still calm, "I worked with the city council to write the exact ordinance that says." Kruger shoved a finger into his chest. "You think you're smart, huh?" Her tone shifted, recorded perfectly by her own dashcam and Tyrone's phone. "You people always think you can twist rules." Elias inhaled, slow and steady. Not angry. Not scared. Just tired. Tyrone stepped a little closer, recording every second. "Officer," Elias said quietly, "I know my rights." Kruger's eyes lit up, but not like someone who realized they were wrong. Like someone who felt challenged. "Right? You have the right to step back. Now, before I escalate this." "You're escalating it now," Elias said softly. And that was enough. Kruger grabbed her radio. "Dispatch, I need backup," she announced loudly, eyes locked on Elias. "I have a," she paused, choosing her words. "A male suspect becoming confrontational and aggressive." Tyrone scoffed. "Aggressive? He hasn't even blinked hard." Kruger pointed at him. "You're obstructing?" "No, he's not," Elias cut in, still calm. That pushed her. Art. She stepped forward, grabbed Elias's wrist, and yanked his arm as if he weighed nothing. The flyers fluttered through the air like wounded birds. "Hands behind your back." Elias didn't resist. Didn't argue. Didn't twist. He just looked at her, hurt but steady. The bus shelter glass behind him reflected the whole scene. A big black man in a coat too nice for the sidewalk, standing still while a smaller, angry officer acted like she discovered a criminal empire. Bystanders slowed their steps. Some stared. Most pretended not to. But Tyrone kept recording. Elias finally spoke, not to Kruger but to the approaching backup sirens. "Good," he said quietly. Kruger frowned. "Good?" Elias nodded once. A calm nod. A confident nod. A nod that said he knew something she didn't. "Backup will help clear this up," he said. Kruger snorted. "Oh, I don't think so." But then the patrol SUV turned the corner. And the sergeant inside saw Elias. And froze. Sergeant Colin Reddick, tall, husky, red-haired, face carved with years of stress, stepped out and stared at Elias like he had just seen a ghost. He walked quickly toward them. "Officer Kruger," he said slowly, "why is he in cuffs?" Kruger smirked. "Soliciting illegally. Loitering. Intimidating citizens. Being uncooperative. The usual." Tyrone muttered, "She lying straight into the wind." Sergeant Reddick took a breath. A long one. "Kruger," he said, "do you know who this man is?" Kruger rolled her eyes. "Another loudmouth standing on a corner? Don't tell me he's your cousin or something." Reddick's jaw tightened. "This is council candidate Elias Ford," he said slowly. "The man who co-wrote Ordinance 42B. The same law that explicitly allows campaigning within 50 feet of public transportation stops." Kruger froze. What? And, Reddick continued, his voice dropping, "he also served 12 years as a legal advisor contracted by the Department of Defense. He has higher federal clearance than you, me, or anyone in this district." Tyrone whispered, "Oh, snap." Kruger's face drained of color. Elias simply looked at her, disappointed but silent. The power dynamic flipped without a sound. Reddick stepped closer to Kruger. "Take the cuffs off him," he ordered. Kruger didn't move. "Now." Her hands shook as she unlocked the cuffs and stepped back like she'd touched something electric. Elias rubbed his wrist but didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just looked at her with quiet pain. "You called me aggressive," he said softly, "when all I did was talk." Kruger swallowed. "Art. You escalated force against a non-threatening subject," Reddick added. "Your body cam recorded everything. And so did," he gestured toward Tyrone. "Him." Kruger glanced at Tyrone's phone, live on TikTok. Thousands were already watching. Elias bent down, picked up the flyers scattered across the sidewalk, brushed the leaves off them, and held them gently in his hands. "I just wanted people to know I'm running," he said quietly. "That's all." The street felt heavier, quieter, colder. People who pretended not to see earlier now stared with wide eyes, some ashamed, some angry, some whispering to each other. Kruger stepped back like she needed distance. Tyrone kept recording. Because the world needed to see this. Elias finally looked at Kruger one last time. His voice was soft enough that only she and the camera could hear. "Power isn't about control," he said. "It's about responsibility." And with that he walked away, leaving the truth behind him like a shadow that would not fade. The cold Cleveland wind pushed through Franklin and Vine like it wanted to carry the truth across the whole city. The moment Elias Ford walked away from Officer Kruger, the street didn't feel the same. It felt bruised, exposed, awake. Tyrone Pierce kept recording, breathing hard behind the phone. His hands shook, not just from the cold but from what he knew was about to happen. The video was still live, comments exploding across the bottom of his screen. "Who is this man? Bro, she cuffed a candidate? This is crazy. Post the full clip." The world had seen enough in just 5 minutes to take this tiny corner of Cleveland and turn it into a national conversation. But the real explosion had not happened yet. Elias walked toward the mural on the wall, a long image of blue waves and city lines painted with hope. He paused under it, catching his breath. His face was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. Not from fear. From old anger he had learned to hold in. Kruger watched him from yards away, stiff, pale, unable to move her boots off the concrete. Her world had cracked open, and she didn't know how to stand on the broken pieces. Sergeant Reddick stepped beside her. "Madeline," he said quietly. She didn't answer. "You crossed a line today." Still no answer. Tyrone finally ended the live stream, but he didn't walk away. He held his camera down by his side and stared at Elias. "You okay, sir?" Tyrone asked. Elias nodded once. "Yes. Thank you for filming." "That was crazy," Tyrone whispered. "She acted like you were, I dunno, a threat." Elias sighed. "I'm used to it. And that was the saddest part. People walked up slowly, two seniors from across the street, a woman from the bakery, a bus driver who had been watching from the parked bus. They approached Elias with the timid, careful steps of people who feel guilty for not acting sooner. A teacher from the corner school spoke first. "Mr. Ford, I'm so sorry we didn't step in." Elias shook his head. "You shouldn't have had to." One man, pale and tall, whispered, I thought she was right. I thought maybe you weren't allowed to be here. I didn't know." Elias looked at him gently. "And now you do." The man nodded, ashamed. Meanwhile, Kruger stood stiff, eyes fixed on the ground. Her radio crackled, but she didn't answer it. She looked like a soldier who realized she had fired at the wrong person, in front of the whole world. A second police SUV rolled up, lights flashing, but this time the energy was different. No rush. No aggression. Just seriousness. A tall black woman stepped out, wearing a dark blue coat over her uniform and a stern expression that could cut stone. Commander Janelle Rainey. Her eyes landed first on Elias, then on Kruger, then on Tyrone's phone. She already knew. She walked straight toward Elias. "Mr. Ford," she said softly, "are you hurt?" "No," Elias answered. "Just disappointed." Commander Rainey nodded. "That's still harm." Kruger swallowed. "Art." Rainey turned to her. "Officer Kruger. Report." Kruger opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Not a word. Not even a lie. She knew everything was caught on camera. 2 cameras, actually. One hers. One the world's. I may have misunderstood the situation," Kruger muttered. "Misunderstood?" Rainey said sharply. "You detained a civilian without cause. You misidentified a public figure. You escalated without threat. And you called for backup under false pretenses." Kruger's face twisted, humiliation hitting her like a punch. "I didn't know who he was," she whispered. Commander Rainey leaned inches from her face. "Then maybe the problem," she said coldly, "is that you treat people differently based on who you think they are." Gasps spread across the crowd. Kruger froze. Rainey wasn't done. "And you said he was intimidating?" "He didn't move. He didn't yell. He didn't even raise his voice." "So what exactly intimidated you, Officer Kruger?" Kruger blinked, wide-eyed, as if she didn't expect the question. "Was it his tone? His posture?" Commander Rainey asked sharply. "Or was it his skin?" The crowd murmured in shock. Kruger's face cracked open with fear, because there was no safe answer. And that was the point. Elias watched silently. He didn't want revenge. He wanted truth. But truth had a heavy sound, and it echoed long after it was spoken. Commander Rainey stepped closer to him. "Mr. Ford, I know you prefer privacy. But I need to make something clear to the officers here." Elias nodded. "Go ahead." Rainey turned to Kruger. "This man isn't just a candidate," she said, her voice shaking the air. "He isn't just an advisor. He isn't just the author of the ordinance you ignored." She paused. "He is also a former federal legal strategist who trained military police units overseas on civil rights enforcement. He has taught at the Justice Academy. He has written national directives on de-escalation." The crowd gasped. Tyrone whispered, "Bro, you're like, super important." Elias smiled slightly. "Not important. Just prepared." Commander Rainey continued. "And the very policies this department uses today, the ones you're supposed to follow, were designed with Mr. Ford's guidance." Kruger's knees almost buckled. She had tried to police the man who trained the people who trained her. Instant karma, delivered by the universe with perfect timing. Commander Rainey straightened her coat. "Officer Kruger," she said loudly enough for everyone on the street to hear, "you are relieved of duty effective immediately. Turn in your badge and weapon." Kruger gasped. "Commander, please?" "Now." Kruger's hands trembled as she unpinned her badge, placed it in Rainey's palm, and holstered her weapon into the evidence pouch Rainey held open. Tyrone recorded the whole thing. People watched, breath held. A woman whispered, "It's about time." A man whispered, "Good." Another said, "She did that to the Wallace kid last year too." The truth was crawling out of the neighborhood's bones. Kruger finally broke. "I wasn't trying to be racist," she whispered, voice cracking. Elias shook his head gently. "You don't have to try," he said quietly. "That's how deep it sits." She stared at him, eyes wet, confused, scared. "But I'm not a bad person," she whispered. Elias didn't respond with anger. He responded with the most painful truth of all. "Most harm," he said softly, "is done by people who think they aren't." The street went silent. Even the wind paused. Tyrone stepped forward, gripping his phone. You almost ruined his life today, he said to Kruger. And the worst part? You would have slept fine tonight thinking he was wrong. Kruger looked at the ground. You should be glad he's calmer than most people, Tyrone continued. Because if it was someone else, someone scared or angry, this could have gone real bad. Commander Rainey nodded slowly. He's right. Elias looked at the crowd, the faces, the worry, the guilt, the hope. I'm running for city council, he said gently, because things like this keep happening. Not just to me. To kids. To students. To workers. To mothers. To fathers. He took a breath. And the people with the least power get pushed the hardest. Tyrone lowered his phone. Kruger wiped her eyes. The crowd leaned closer. Elias spoke the final line in a soft tone that carried across the entire street. We don't need louder officers. We need wiser ones. And just like that, the moment settled, painful, powerful, unforgettable. If you want the full story to continue, make sure you subscribe and tell me, what would you have done if you were standing on that street?